This is what she tweeted on Monday morning. Hashtag Leicester City Football Club. Listen to how they mourn for a man who was a foreigner, cosmopolitan, person of nowhere, in Theresa May's words. What do our white nativist, I think we use nativist influencers have to say about that? That's all that she wrote. It's received thousands of views. The tweet has been condemned by everyone from Julia Hartley-Brewer of this station to many others. Yasmin's been accused of racism, of insensitivity, more often than not by people hiding behind the cowardly veil of anonymity. And more interesting still were some of the comments fired back at Yasmin from those claiming the moral high ground. And you will have to give me, dear listener, because I think it's important that I share a few of those. And Yasmin, forgive me too, because you may not have seen them all. A sticker in a curry with an animation is one that I personally found quite difficult to forget. Here's another one, and again, apologies for the language. I will edit as judiciously as I can. What a contemptible, agenda-driven bitch. How about disappearing back up your own arse for a facelift? It's people and attitudes like yours that encourage racism, in so much most would want you to F off back to whichever puddle of urine, for want of another word, you spawned from.
Nicely put.
Vile bitch, muzzle the bitch, evil woman. And they're just the ones I can share. And I'll be honest, I left out the more overtly racist, threatening and misogynistic comments. So, Yasmin, what did you mean by your tweet?
My tweet was very simple. I so was moved by the way they were mourning this extraordinary chap who made Leicester Football Club what it was. I never met him. Appeared to be loved, was gracious, was kind, and was loved by the people of Leicester. And I actually love Leicester City, which is the most extraordinary multi-ethnic city at ease with itself. So I was not at all attacking any of them.
Who were you attacking?
I was attacking Theresa May, people like David Goodhart, even Trevor Phillips, who in recent months and years have gone on and on and on about how diversity is ruining the essence of Britain. And in Theresa May's words, those people from everywhere, that's me, and the chairman, the late chairman, the people from everywhere are people of nowhere, and the people who matter are the people of somewhere. This is David Goodhart, who is an intellectual. He writes 2 new academic books have come out arguing the same thing. And I was just saying, when these amazing moments, as during the Olympics, or this extraordinary, genuine grief in Leicester, it tells us that actually British people are incredibly together across races. Yet these people go on and on about how we are bad for this nation. That's what I was saying. But I will say this, I have never reported these trolls who come for me to the police. But after this wave, I will now report this to the police because it's not fair.
Okay, now, to be clear and declare interest, I consider you my friend. I've known you for a very long time. And we haven't communicated at all until you've walked into the studio since that tweet was sent, just to be clear. So I didn't tweet my view of your tweet until, I think it was this morning, actually. And I wrote to somebody who said, you're being overtly racist. I'm going to come back to that. And I suggested, isn't she having a pop at racists who endlessly run down contributions made by foreigners to this country but forget their hatred when tragedy strikes close to home? Trouble is, most racists I had too thick to grasp this. Have I got the flavour of it right there? So because I read it and that's, it seemed the meaning was clear. Can I just ask you, Kevin, I mean, the most opprobrium that seems to be fired your way is an allegation that you have been racist. And hopefully somebody can phone up and actually tell us a little bit more about it, because I struggle to identify that. Can you see the racist?
Well, let me go on. This is what I took your tweet to mean, Yasmin, and correct me if I'm wrong. That actually, in their moment of grief, in a way, the people of Leicester were embracing the concept of multiculturalism. It wasn't a criticism of the fans or of the people mourning him. It certainly wasn't a criticism of him. It was a criticism of the kind of Britain that Theresa May and her ilk somehow have rode against lately.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. So what do you say to people that say it was a racist tweet? Is there inverted racism in that?
We have reached the point, actually, many, many years ago, Francis Wheen, the journalist, said, and this was a long time ago, we're entering some treacherous waters, he said, when if people complain about racism, they are accused of being racists. He noted that, I think, about 10 years ago, and that's what happens. So if I say anything about power sharing, about the Ryanair man, then I am racist because I've complained about something because he says he's not racist. I've had a lot of that too coming at me on emails. You know, the man said he wasn't racist. You're racist for saying he's racist. Now, I'm sorry. You know, if this is how you want to attack me, go ahead, but it makes no sense. I do not protect. You know, one of the things I'm also accused of, you never complain about bad things that you lot do. How many times have I written about the groomers? And I'll say it again on your show. Those men who pick young, vulnerable white girls and do what they do to them, and they are mainly Pakistani Muslims, are both racist and sexist. I've said it.
Yes,
I've said it. It's on record. I'll go over and I'll get the same thing happening.
This is tangential, but it follows you around like a bad smell. There is a tweet which invariably people with the cross of St George or a big red cross, never their real name. And it's words to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, God, I hate white men. I wish they'd all be driven off the earth and die. Tell us about that, because I only ever counter it by saying she hates white men, but she married one. And then I got, but he didn't know what he was marrying, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yes. And let me tell this man who says he didn't know what he was marrying. 8 white men have offered to marry me in the last 20 years. They knew what they were coming for, and they knew what they would get.
The tweet where you say you want to, where you want to get rid. I wish all the white. I want all white men dead. I want them.
No. What happened was, nearly 8 years ago, I was on the BBC with Gavin Esler, and we were talking about white male power, which everybody's talking about.
Yes, they are.
Actually, Me Too is talking about, everybody's talking about, but somebody like me apparently is not allowed to talk about it. So we'd finished talking about it, and he joked, and he's a friend, and he joked, he said, sometimes, or something like, I can't exactly, he said, sometimes you must wish that white men could become extinct. So I said, yeah, of course I do. That was it. It was a joke. And they've put it on my Wikipedia. They follow it now. It's 8 years ago. Have these guys not got a life?
Judging from the Twitter feed, the answer is a resounding no. They absolutely do not have a life.
St George was Palestinian, by the way.
Never even came to this country. Can I ask about the timing then of your tweet? Because this is typical from the less, how can we put this, the less angry, and actually this one I have a real name, a lady called June. I won't give her last name. You're right as her friend to support Yasmin, but you would be better, mate, this time to have advised her to apologise for her abysmal timing. I always thought she was an intelligent woman. This was crass.
Can I say something about that? There is no other timing where you could make a tweet like this. This was precisely the moment, wasn't it?
I was not. Why would the timing be wrong if I was not attacking the mourners?
There we go.
I'm completely with the mourners on this and the people of Leicester. I was attacking those people who have been ferociously blaming us foreigners for all the ills of the country. So I'm really sorry to have upset people, but I think one of the things that happened, as so often happens, some big names, including some right-wing empresses who shall remain nameless, set the dogs on you. And people haven't seen the tweet, but they've seen what the person said.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I deduced that.
Yeah. I mean, that's
so.
I wish I could present more cogent arguments from the multitude of people who lined up yesterday to give you a kicking. But I'm going through the Twitter now, and by the time I cut out the ones that are just racially abusive to you or extremely unpleasant and rude, I've pretty much covered the arguments. People say you made a racist tweet. I didn't perceive it like that. I tweeted my view of it before we spoke. You've given your view. No disrespect meant to the people of Leicester, to the family of Vichai. But you do have issues with people that have put down the contribution that foreigners may have made to this country, and then they
are overtly racist.
Right.
And what am I supposed to do as one of the few people in the public space who has the power and the voice? That I just accept their reality, Mrs. May, David Goodhart? No, I say, look what the people of Leicester feel about this incredible chap.
Even as they're listening to you, Tracy says, all great topics, though Yasmin tweets yesterday about the Leicester owner was wrong. You didn't make, she was simply wrong and it did appear racist.
It doesn't, how can it appear racist? I don't understand this.
There's a sort of even more depressing element to this sort of Twitter storm syndrome. that the high priests and the high priestesses.
Sorry, can I just add this? This comes out race-baiting disgrace of a columnist. I'll chuck that one in. That's
But the high priests and high priestesses of the Twitter lynch mob, they don't even really care what the topic is. They're trawling Twitter all the time to find the kind of tweet they can whip up a row about. Yours was ideal fare for them, and that's what this is about.
Well, listen, I can tell you one thing. This is just one more chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a radio program last week, long before this Twitter, right? On Ian Dale's show. Even before I had arrived in the studio, he was totally pale. He said, I can't believe the stuff people have thrown at you before you've even arrived in the studio. So there is an army out there of trolls who's picked me as their quarry.
Nobody. I kept pointing out as best I could. I mean, I quite enjoy baiting the trolls because most of them are so thick. It just makes a change to them putting down their crayons till mummy takes their phone away from them. So I'm baiting a few of them. And I just occasionally saying, don't you find it weird that what you've just said about Yasmin, the stuff that I actually can't read out, is far, 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 far more unpleasant, damaging, abusive than anything Yasmin has ever tweeted, and yet you claim to have the moral high ground. Silence. That's all you get. Every time I took them to task, I went, silence. There is a lot of hate out there.
And most of these people don't care about the subject. They care about bullying you.
James Asbestos.
And it's the brown-skinned, big-mouth woman that gets under their skin.
You're right.
James Asbestos is a regular communicator with this show. I know him, a bright guy. He says he's still insisting. He's listened to everything. It was an inappropriate tweet at an inappropriate time. You ought to apologise, not necessarily for the content. She's entitled to her views, but the timing.
But why is I did not insult the man who died or Leicester.
Quite the reverse.
So, all right, I'll apologise to Mrs. May. Shall I?
If you wish. I don't see the point of. As I said, I think we've explained as best we can. I get from my own personal experience of when you say things that are misconstrued, it doesn't matter how many times you repeat what your intention was. It doesn't matter how many times you show evidence. The invariably anonymous people, often now with red crosses by their name.
But you see, then what happens is, because it's some really fiery sorts with millions of followers have maligned you quite unfairly without saying what was on the tweet, then there's a secondary wave. Of course, a secondary wave that follows. And I just think, they keep telling me, actually, Matthew, this is an important point. They keep telling me we live in a time and a place where freedom of speech really matters. And you Muslims don't understand freedom of speech. Well, I understood freedom of speech and I used it, and look what happened.
Well, it's very rare I'll appeal to a troll, but if Essex fella who tweets us at Essex View wants to get in touch, I'd love to engage with him, because the vitriol and hatred that has been in my timeline for the last 24 hours following Yasmin Alibhai-Brown's tweet it's been really annoying, actually. And having gone through the interview, and I'm at a loss as to what else I'm supposed to ask, because people just say it's racist. They never actually explain why that tweet was racist. So Essex fella says, total cop-out. This foul woman has previous form on her attacks on white people. At TV Kev, sad you have gone along with this charade. Thought better of you. I just don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't know what other questions I'm asked. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll tell you what. We'll go from you, Yasmin, alleged racist, to a man who assures us he's most definitely not a racist, and that's Tommy Robinson, or whatever he wants to call himself this week.
Can I just get in this Twitter from our friend Angry Britain, who I should be seeing at the weekend? He says, the reason Twitter are getting rid of the like button is that there's barely anything to like about Twitter anymore. I think that pretty much sums up what we think, isn't it?
So what are your thoughts about Tommy Robinson then, and this ongoing charade of a legal case?
I am so shocked, actually, at how far he's got, this man. We know his record. I wrote my column today on
you did indeed.
How he's wearing a poppy now. He's weaponising the poppy, he and his lot.
How do you mean now? Do you see that's immediately inflame all the people with red crosses and fake names?
I went to interview about 3-4 months ago for a book I'm considering writing. I went to interview some EDL members. And it was extraordinary how the poppy, they're now using the poppy, saying, we fought the war, we won the war, and we didn't win the war for people like you to come and ruin it all, basically. And but how he has managed to gather around him such power, such money, such support, so that even the police, until
House of Lords, in
yesterday,
dinner for House of Lords.
until yesterday, they hadn't issued the pictures of the people who attacked them in July. Do you remember in July they'd all gathered to support Tommy Robinson? They attacked the police, physically attacked the police. It's only yesterday or the day before that the police released the faces of the people they're looking for. So it's like they're terrified of his presence and his supporters. This trip to America, I hope
He's
it
been
doesn't...
invited to address Congress.
Yeah.
How about that?
But of course, their immigration and visitor rules, he breaks every one of them because he's a felon, he's a fraudster, and he's been in prison. But if he is allowed, it will be very interesting, won't it?
Yeah.
But it is quite extraordinary to me.
Okay, now, Essex man, or whatever he's pretending to be, hasn't called us back in, but a gentleman called John has, and I'm told he's angry, so let's bring him to air. John, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, mate.
What would you like to tell us then, sir?
Right. Yasmin, I don't care what you just said, but 72 hours later, after somebody has died, you need to either A, grow up or shut up.
Why? What about free speech, John? What about free speech? There are no rules in this country about when you can and cannot tweet. We live in a free country with free speech, and she exercised it like you are now, John.
Listen to me.
Why?
You do never...
Why?
Ever,
Be polite
ever,
and maybe we will.
You do never, ever use somebody else's death
Says
to
who?
make a point.
Says
I
who?
don't care whether you're the Queen of flipping Sheba. You do not use somebody else's death
Says who?
to make a point to have a go at the Prime Minister.
Says who?
Says I, and probably 99% of this...
So help me out, John. So if an Asian shopkeeper was beaten to death, okay, by skinhead racist thugs, we wouldn't be allowed to talk about it within 72 hours because that is disrespecting to that person's death.
Absolutely.
What utter nonsense you
nonsense is
speak,
this?
John. What utter nonsense. Listen to
Why
yourself.
is it nonsense? Why is it nonsense?
Because it might be relevant. The cause of death may be
And since I
relevant.
did not
If that happened
disrespect...
your
And
day-
did... can you let me speak? Will you let me speak or not? Will you let me speak?
Wait a
And
second, John.
My channel. This is
will you listen to me?
No, hang on. If that had been your dad, okay...
I would still have tweeted to say what a great guy he was, what a lot of support he had. If he was the chap who brought a city together, yes. But listen to me. I did not disrespect the dead. I
Well, it
respected
sounds
him
very much like
hugely.
that to me.
But you think you can disrespect me the way you've just done so
You've just
because of
admitted
who
yourself-
I am,
you've
isn't
admitted
it?
yourself because you're overtly racist.
Oh, really?
Can you
Prove
get-
it.
You're admitting...
Prove it.
Prove it.
Oh, here we go. How am I supposed to prove it?
Well, then don't say it.
You just said, hey, you hate white men.
John, in the nicest possible way, you make thick people feel good about themselves. Thanks for the call.